Guys, so is poultry farming actually profitable? Can you actually make money from poultry farming? Now, this is an interesting question because I can imagine it would be quite obvious considering how far I have come with the farm, considering where I started, how little I was making, and how big the farm has grown. But you know what's really interesting? People do still have their doubts. I find a lot of people on social media, even up to date, thinking that the money still comes from somewhere that's not the farm. And also the other day I was going through X and I saw someone who posted a comment and they were like, they can never go back to farming. It doesn't matter what. It's one business that someone can never convince them to get back into because they made terrible, terrible, crazy losses. And so I was thinking to myself, why do people think this way about poultry farming or about farming generally? Why do they think that it can't make money, that it's not profitable, that it's loss-making? And in today's video, I actually want to share with you guys and prove to you using figures that poultry farming is actually profitable. Or farming generally can be profitable, yeah? But before we go there, we want to first tackle the inherent question. Why do people find it so difficult to make money from farming? Why? Now, before I actually answer that, I want to show you and tell you that farming is actually one of those businesses that almost never fail. So first of all, if you actually do fail at a farm, it just means that you're a terrible farmer, you're a terrible businessman. I'll just be honest with you. Yeah, you're just terrible. If you have even just a bit of discipline, focus, a bit of mental awareness, a bit of hard work, you're at least going to survive. You may not thrive. You may not be like me, who started with 800 chickens just a while back, and currently I've been able to scale, and I'm currently doing 12,000 chickens. You may not be like me, but you might probably still be at the 800 over the years, and it's getting you enough money to, survive, pay your bills, and do all the things, all the chaos that you might have. You may not thrive, but at least the farm won't fail. You won't close. You'll have some money to, pay for your bills, pay for your food, pay for your rent, and things like that. Yeah. So why is it that a lot of people fail at it? Why? You see, the good thing with farming is that the product of farming, which is actually food, is one of those things that are needed each and every day, yeah? So what that means is that when it comes to the business side of things, the demand for the product is consistently available. Because the demand is consistently available, a lot of people try to dig in. A lot of people try to get into farming. Everyone will try to get into farming. And also because food is a basic necessity in a lot of places. For example, me, where I am right now, you guys can see it's very green and beautiful. You guys can see the sides, yeah? It's very green and beautiful. What that means is that almost anyone around here can grow food. So it doesn't matter who you are. If you do have some land, you can grow food and you can get some money out of it, yeah? People can keep chickens because, again, if there's food, that means there's maize growing, people grow soya beans, they grow and all these things, then people can put money aside to actually invest into a poultry farm or, to feed their chickens or anything like that. So what that means is that inherently there's going to be a lot of competition when it does come to businesses. Yeah. So farming is one of those things that in most parts of the world actually has a lot of competition. Now, in some parts of the world, it's actually hard to get into farming because it's very expensive to get into farming. For example, if you're living in a country like the US or the Netherlands, first of all, land is really expensive in some of those places. That's number one. Number two, a lot of the farming is very mechanized. I mean, you're not going to find a lot of people who are doing chickens like me or chicken houses like me, where I'm doing deep litter, using open-sided chicken houses like this, using iron sheets. I mean, I can say I'm so blessed and lucky because of where my farm is placed in the world. I'm in a tropical country, and what that means is that our temperatures, especially where my farm is, are basically the same all year round. Yeah, the temperatures are going to be between 25, maybe maximum 31, 32 degrees. So it doesn't get too cold, doesn't get too hot. So I don't need to think about environmentally controlled houses because it doesn't get too hot that I need to, use AC to cool down the houses. And it also doesn't get too cold that I need to warm up the houses using AC. So I'm really blessed. So almost anyone who tries such a business in such a place is going to thrive. And what that means is that for you to actually succeed, you're actually going to have to be different. You're going to have to be different from the rest of the people. Yeah. So when I see a lot of people commenting and they're like, farming is not profitable, I'm like, yo, what are they talking about? Yeah. Now, the one thing that I can guarantee you is that the profitability when it does come to farming varies a lot. Yeah. And I'm going to share numbers when it does come to this. Yeah. The profitability that varies a lot. I have a few figures written down here. It varies a lot. And I just want to give you guys a quick example. In October 2024, I made about $13,274. So that's last year in October. $13,274 in terms of sales on the farm. But my profit was only 2.3%. And that means I only made a profit of $311. Yeah. Why? Because of a few factors. Now, at that time, the price of maize was actually low, but I was expanding on the farm. So at that time, I had 5,000 chickens that were already laying eggs, but I also had 4,500 chickens that were not laying eggs. 4,500 chickens that were still growing up, and they were growing into the phase of producing eggs, yeah? So what that meant is that I was in an expansion phase. Now, I don't know if you would call that profit or not, because the initial 5,000 birds actually had their own profit, but they were literally, I was using all the money to feed the younger flock that was growing up, yeah? So what that meant is that I had very little profit, almost no profit left on the farm. But fast forward to December of the very same year, that's 2 months later, now the other flocks of 4,500 had gotten into production. And I made sales of $20,000, 423. And my profit was 44%. Can you imagine? From 2.3% to 44%. And that was $9,063. That was my profitability, yeah, on the farm. Now that's crazy, yeah? Coming from $2.3 and then 2 months later, $9,063 for the month. Not for a year or something like that, for the month. That's really crazy. Now, at that point, the other 2 batches had come into production and I was actually making money. So the profitability can vary a lot based on a lot of factors, especially for me, for example, whose farm is still expanding. Now, I bought land. I used some of that money, the $9,000 and something to buy land. I have land on my side, you know, to expand. I've been building more chicken structures, building more stuff, building more things around. I bought a mill recently. So I've been doing quite a number of things around the farm. But the thing is that I was still very profitable. Now you'll compare and contrast that with, 2019 when I started out. Actually, I made videos about profitability and how profitable my farm can be, yeah, right on this channel. I think I'll leave a link to one of these videos right here so you guys can check it out. And you see, you know, some of the months I was making profit of like $50, $100, something like that. It was still profitable, but again, I didn't worry so much because I was still in the growing phase. So what you need to understand is that farming is actually profitable. Now, for me to get to the point where I'm actually this profitable, it's because I have learned and figured out how to do farming, yeah? I want to tell this to you guys because you guys need to understand that it's actually possible to make money. My goal is not to show off or anything. In fact, I'll tell you the honest truth. I barely ever keep any of the money that I make from the farm because I just put all the money back. Like I've told you guys, I buy land around, buy equipment, build more chicken houses. Even the $9,000, you won't find a cent or a shilling of it because all of it just goes back into the farm. Farm to utilize some of it just a little bit, but most of it just goes back into the farm. Now, I personally have the luxury of doing that. Some people just don't have that luxury. They have, you know, families to feed. I also do have a family, but I have other sources of income currently, yeah, that I can utilize to feed my family, to do, you know, all these other things that a lot of other people don't have. What you need to understand is that it is possible, yeah, it is possible for you to make lots and lots of money. But why have people failed to make money from farming, yeah? What you need to understand is that also in some other countries, farmers are generally more profitable than in some countries, yeah? Why have people failed to get their farms profitable? Why have people failed to, you know, become rich? Why? Again, like I've said, I find a lot of comments in my social media pages where people think that, you know, this is all some form of lie, that it's not possible to make money and grow from a farm. I'll give you a few reasons why I personally believe, you know, most people fail. Number one is being a telephone farmer. Now, I personally am a telephone farmer currently, but before I became a telephone farmer, I was actually first an on-ground farmer. I would spend days and months sleeping on the farm, yeah? I would live on the farm, literally. I remember when I just started, I was still working as a medical doctor, and my Mondays to Fridays were all full of work. Once in a while on Saturdays, I would also work. In fact, most of the days on Saturdays, I would work half day. But as soon as the half day is done, on Sundays, I would always be on the farm. Even on the weekdays, yeah? If anything ever came up in the evening, as soon as work gets done, at 6 p.m., I'll just rush over to the farm. The farm wasn't so far away. It was like 30 kilometers away from my workplace. But I would rush over to the farm to find out what's happening, yeah? And I would spend all my weekends on the farm. Now, there are people who, spend a month without stepping on the farm. And when they go to the farm, they're outside, you know, asking the guys what's going on. They never put on the gumboots, never put on the overall. They never get inside, they never get dirty. The interesting fact is that right now, I barely ever enter the chicken houses because I can understand the facts simply using the data that's given to me. Plain and simple, I can understand it. A lot of people can't do that, yeah, because they just don't understand how to do it. They haven't figured it out, they just don't know how to do it. I personally had to do that after a long time of work. After that, there's a time that reached after I resigned as a medical doctor that I was literally living on the farm. For months, I would step off the farm like once in a month or twice in a month. That's all. For the rest of the time, I would be on the farm, involved in mixing the feed, dealing with the workers, dealing with this person and the other person. So at the beginning, you really need to understand how the farm thing works. That's how you're going to get the information to understand the technicalities, the complexities that are involved in starting and managing and running a farm. So being a telephone farmer is one of the biggest problems that has killed people. I'm not saying that you have to be physically present for the rest of your life. No, like I've told you guys, currently I can spend a lot of time away from the farm. I can spend a month, I can spend 2 months away from the farm, and I'm not worried that something is going wrong. Yeah, but if you don't spend a lot of time on the farm, especially at the start, you won't figure it out. Another reason as to why a lot of people are failing in farming is that they don't want to get involved in the sales process. A lot of people, especially when it does come to farmers, they do all the hard work. Imagine preparing to start the farm. Yeah, so that's collecting the money, doing all the background research, all the information and all these kind of things. Then after that, you buy all the equipment. If you're going to be doing crops, buy all the seeds, build the chicken structures, or whatever, get the cattle in. Do all the hard work, get the animals, feed them, treat them with diseases. You get the product, you package it, whichever way you package it, and you decide to do nothing when it does come to the sales. When it does come to the sales, you decide to sit down and wait for a middleman to come and buy your product from you because you're like, oh, I've done most of the hard work. I'll just leave this one. I mean, you're leaving the most important part of everything to someone else. Can you imagine? I would rather you pay less attention on these things and actually focus on the sales. Yeah, it's really important that you focus on the sales, because if you don't focus on the sales, you'll be surprised. The middlemen can actually rip you off. They can take half of your profit, sometimes even more than half of your profit. You want to be control of your profit. So if it means investing a little bit more in the sales by getting a truck, by delivering to people, by moving around and doing one-on-one sales, just like the middlemen do, that's what you're going to have to do. That way you get to keep more money in your pocket. That's how you do it. And then finally, number 3 is that people just don't want to get information. Like I've said, they are willing to spend money. You'll find someone, they have invested $100,000 in a farm, $200,000 in a farm, and they just didn't get the knowledge. So they do the farm the way they want. I've shared a story of someone I know who built a chicken structure that probably cost over 100,000 USD, and they built it the wrong way. I'm like, what the hell is this? Yeah, I mean, all it needed is probably like, I don't know, $500, $1,000. You pay Dr. Daniel to do the consultation, and he will teach you how to build a chicken house. The one that costs $100,000, you probably build it for $50,000. You give him your $1,000 just to get the knowledge, and then you have everything in place. But you'll find someone, they are so mean. They're not willing to invest any money to even acquire knowledge. They're not willing to buy a book. They're not willing to attend a seminar. They're not willing to pay for consultation, nothing, but they are willing to invest $100,000 in a chicken house because they feel like they don't want to give their money for free to someone else. Yeah? So it is very, very important that you actually learn and understand how to do these things. If you learn and understand how to do these things, get the knowledge, then everything will come off really easily for you. This is something that I'm passionate about because I feel so bad when I see a lot of farmers suffering and stressing and missing out on money when it's very easy to make. Yeah. Now, talking about getting information, I've actually come up with the Farm Up Academy. I'll leave a link to the Farm Up Academy in the description of this video. Over there, you can go and check it out. I'll teach you how to start and build a profitable poultry farm that easily makes you 5,000 USD or more every month. I put a lot of information there. I actually already have quite a number of students in the class, and they're getting information every day, and they're starting. Some of them are thriving, growing their farms, making a lot of money. You can go and check it out. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, smash the notification bell. That way you never miss out on an upload. Catch you very soon with another video. Lots of love. Bye-bye.